Hey Contemporaneous fans, this is David Bloom speaking, and I'm really excited to be here today with Conor Brown, who's joining me all the way from Boulder, Colorado. Thanks for your time, Conor.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So Conor's one of our founding composer-performer members, and really one of our favorite composers in our generation making music today.
Thanks,
so
David.
naturally, we wanted him to write us a piece, and we're now finally able to do it. So this weekend, November 30th and December 1st, we're premiering his piece Scrolls, the brand new piece he just wrote for us, which is even better than we imagined. So we're really excited about it.
It's a lot more than you imagined, too. I think when we started talking about this, you were thinking, oh, he'll write 7 minutes. Here I come back with 30 minutes of music. Whoa.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly what we wanted, because when we asked you to write us a piece, we said, okay, Conor, we really love what you're doing, and we know that whatever you write for us is going to be great. So what can we do for you? How can we realize your imagination?
Right.
And so, yeah, could you tell us a little bit about the piece you wrote for us?
Absolutely, yes. So, like I said, it's about 30 minutes of music, and it's for clarinetists, saxophonists, 4 vocalists, percussion, drum kit, bass guitar. It's a huge piece, lots of instruments. And I really wanted to use all of these instruments to their full potential and really have contrast between really intimate, soft, and really loud, which obviously you can do with an amplified ensemble with electric instruments and mics. So I tried to get everything in there, and I think I'm pretty pleased with the amount of variety I was able to cram into this 30 minutes. So.
Yeah. So what were some of your main inspirations in writing the piece?
Well, I think actually playing the instruments themselves had a lot to do with what came out, and specifically I was working with another composer, John Halley, who I was working on a record with him. I was producing a record of all his music, and so I was living in Massachusetts and commuting he has a barn behind his house, so I would commute to his house and stay in this barn, which we converted into a recording studio for his project. And he has this beautiful, beautiful grand piano there, and so I would, at night after we'd been working, not a lot else to do, so I would just sit at this beautiful grand piano and play a lot. And so that especially influenced the second movement and the sixth movement. There's just a lot of piano things, or for example, the sixth movement, I basically recorded in one go sitting at his piano. I figured out what I wanted to do beforehand and then set up a mic and then just did it. And it was me and the piano completely influenced that. So it was really playing the piano had a lot to do with it. But also similarly singing. And piano and voice are kind of polar opposite instruments. So it has this one world, and then the voice is very long notes, held notes, where you have a lot of control over how you want to crescendo through them, which obviously the piano can't do. Also, voice has vibrato, which is a big deal. Piano can't do that either. And voice has the other really special thing, which is consonants and vowels, so words, and a piano can't do that either. So it was this collision of these these instruments with very different capabilities, that just improvising basically in those two worlds and then combining them was the compositional, I would say, building block of this piece.
Wow. And so you mentioned consonants and vowels.
Yes.
And so Scrolls pretty literally speaks a language of its own. And so you made up a language just for this piece. What was that process like, and how did you decide to
Again,
do that?
It was actually very improvisatory. Yeah, that's something else that I pretty much have done that on any piece that I've written that has voice. I always wait till the very end, very last step, to come up with the lyrics, or in this case, a new language. And this language doesn't actually have definitions. It was basically just me singing through all of the parts and making it feel and sound how I wanted emotionally through the sounds that I was making. Rather than choosing words that already exist in a language, I was making it feel really good to sing. I think that was my main goal.
Yeah.
I had some criteria. I had thought through sections beforehand, like what kind of mood do I want to set with the words here. So I would try to keep it in that world, but overall it was about the experience of singing it, feeling really natural and passionate, I guess.
Huh, yeah. Conor, you're a really multifaceted musician. You're a composer, clarinetist, percussionist, singer. You play guitar and bass, just about everything else under the sun in your rock band, Fifth Veil. You play a lot of Balkan folk music, and you're an audio producer, dancer, choreographer. So clearly you have a lot of
too many things.
outlets, rather. How do you keep them all active, and do they inform one another?
They absolutely inform one another. Keeping them all active at the same time is certainly a challenge. It's a lot of stuff to juggle. I try to keep doing all of them and staying at the top of my game on each. Really hard to do, but they do really inform each other. In that, for example, when I was doing a lot of dance and doing a lot of choreography, music obviously plays a big role in that world as well, because music sets it's incredibly important in setting the tone for a piece of dance. Right. And it led me to question the role of music or the point of music a lot more than when I was just focusing on music. It was like stepping back from music and saying, what is this thing and what is it doing? And so certainly dance informed that, and actually that made me more minimal in music. Like, it made me appreciate silence a lot and letting there be space. That's something I had to really work on as a composer, is not filling in every second and letting it breathe a lot. And that's something that dance certainly informed.
How did you discover Balkan and Anatolian folk music, and how have you become an expert?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but it's certainly a huge influence. Scrolls has a lot of, especially Turkish, well, both percussion and singing styles very much influenced this piece. And it goes way back. I started getting into, it started with klezmer music, actually. I don't remember, I think, I'm working at a place called E-Town now, that they do radio shows nationally, and I saw the Klezmatics play an E-Town show.
Oh, wow.
One of their CDs. And so it's a big circle. So Klezmatics led to studying clarinet with David Krakauer, who I studied with a little bit as a kid back then. I guess I was 8 years old. And then also in college I studied classical and klezmer, playing with him. And the klezmer led me to this place called the Balkan Music and Dance Workshop, which is in Mendocino, California. And I think there's one in New York. But I went to the one in California as a kid. I think 3 summers I spent there. And so that was a lot of clarinet and also makam theory, which is Turkish music theory. So I was just kind of surrounded by it. They bring in musicians from Eastern Europe and Turkey. So it's this immersive thing there. And then, let's see, I think a very important step was actually my godmother, who she's a humanitarian aid worker. She has done some teaching, but she's a humanitarian aid worker in places like Afghanistan and Pakistan. She's in Pakistan right now, and so she would go to Turkey on, basically vacation. Turkey was the closest, really relaxing, put together place for her to go from these very war zones, basically. And so she was just hanging out in Istanbul and going to concerts, and so she would bring back CDs when she visited in Colorado, and so this band Kardeş Türküler, she brought back one of their CDs, and immediately I remember very vividly this moment of just sitting in my room as a kid and hearing this music start playing in the living room, and just completely grabbed me. I knew within 10 seconds that I would be completely obsessed with that music for years to come, and it's come true. And I've actually been really lucky. Via the magic of the internet, I was invited by one of the dancers who works with Kardeş Türküler to actually visit their studios in Istanbul. So I made a trip there. So it was 2007, specifically to meet them, and I studied with their clarinetists. There are 2 clarinetists in particular who I work with there, who play with that band. So,
wow. Contemporaneous did a workshop reading of your piece, I guess about 3 months ago now. And so would you tell us a little bit about how that experience was for you, what it was like?
That Contemporaneous put that together was really, I'd say, incredibly lucky thing. It's not every day that you have 17 musicians in a room with an incredible conductor and incredible energy that you can basically ask them to try things and ask them to do things a different way or have their creative input on this piece. And so, let's see, specifically, well, I had this experiment that I tried where I had all of the musicians write a little chunk of music, and then we started piecing it together into a piece, and that was just incredibly cool to see what people would come up with, and making all of these very different ideas fit together was a really, really exciting, cool experience.
Yeah.
Also, specifically, I wound up deciding to not incorporate that into scrolls. I want to create another piece that is just that material.
Right.
But for scrolls specifically, especially with orchestration, it was really helpful to hear the actual instruments playing it. Obviously, MIDI and computer renditions of an instrument just don't tell you what you need to hear all the time. I'm a little bit lucky in that because I do a lot of recording, I can record things myself. For example, recorded all the voice parts in this piece. That's actually how I wrote a lot of the voice parts. Recorded the clarinet parts and the saxophone parts I played on clarinet, and piano parts have some pretty good samples. So I had a fairly good idea, but hearing it all together, like with the strings, which I'm certainly not a string player, hearing that the real instruments do it, it completely changes how you want to orchestrate it.
Right.
So having 3 months was great because I went back and listened to the recordings, and I got to make some big changes to the orchestration, and also articulation, and just like minute things that you can't hear through MIDI or even if you're recording it yourself. So
right.
Really helpful experience.
Cool. So what are some of your favorite things to do with your free time these days?
Free time? Let's see.
Yeah.
Balance all of these dance, music production. I love doing all those things, so I fill up a lot of my time when I'm not at work doing that sort of stuff. But so I do a lot of hiking. So obviously living in Colorado and Boulder, it's partly why I wanted to move back here from the East Coast. Is just I love the mountains here, and getting to hike up mountains as much as possible is one of my big goals here. So, and I've been doing a fair amount of that. So, really lucky to be here.
Great. Well, you mentioned you moved back, and we miss you a lot on the East Coast. But we're really looking forward to seeing you again back here this weekend, and can't wait to share your new piece with the world.
I can't wait to hear it. I'm super excited to be back.
Well, thanks so much for chatting, Conor.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.